Nobody wants to get united. Like, what we gotta do is meet everybody on 149th Street at the bench.
Today we'll be talking about old school styles and techniques and if they're actually better than new school styles, as well as just comparing the two. Old school extensions don't really flow out of the origin more times than not. They don't really have a travel distance more times than not, and more times than not, they also don't flow at the destination. But when we compare that to new school graffiti, you can see this right here, and this is actually a different topic I want to get into, is this extension off the back is a balancing tool for this over here, right? You have uniformity. Uniformity is a big thing in all art forms. The Z weighs an absolute ton, and on top of that, they go ahead and they put a character on the Z. So how do they balance this? Well, number one, they take the center letter, they make it a different color to emphasize focus on that individual letter. Pretty smart move. They then go ahead and take an extension from the end which flows out of the origin, pop it up, throw it all the way over to the left, all for the sake of balance. Notice how the N curls back up and into the A, flowing at the destination. The reason for the travel distance, guys? To hold up the weight of the CA. Now, some of you more keen graffiti artists are gonna look at this and you're gonna go, well, John, you said elements have to repeat, but this extension doesn't. But it does. Notice how this portion of the extension is literally just an inverted version of this part of the Z. Now, all of that explaining was just for extensions. Keep that in mind. So when we go ahead and we look back at the 1970s piece, you can immediately see a dramatic difference in how the extensions function. And yes, in this case, the technique has gotten better because this is how extensions work. This is something that comes to us a lot from calligraphy. That's where extensions kind of are derivative from. And this is kind of like the evolution of style that we're watching. We're watching extensions not really work out in old school, then they're kind of working out here, and they're really, really dope. By the way, I do love this. And then from there, we see a progression with the extensions to modern day, where extensions definitely work. Everything follows the elements of art, which have line, shape, form, value, space, color, texture. Well, that's one of the things that's changing in modern graffiti, and if we look 10, 20 years from now, we'll see a dramatic difference in texture for graffiti. And what's the easiest way to do that so far for a lot of graffiti artists? Metallic. Getting that metallic effect is a really popular effect nowadays. People have been doing it for a long time, people are really getting into it, and we can see it here. Now, this isn't by any means the only texture people are adding. I mean, I myself did subsurface scattering in one of my previous pieces. Not to mention the fact that I've also actually textured many of my pieces. So I think this is gonna be something that we're gonna see change over the course of a couple of decades in the future. But we can see when we look back at older pieces, even in our same decade right now, there's not any texture in any of these pieces. And once again, we're talking about the general graffiti base. And back on graffiti trying to get more realistic, we can see in old school pieces that people don't really understand form. The example I'll give for form is this right here. Notice how this hole works. You see how oval that is? That's not how that form works because the 3D goes straight down. So you can't have a form like this and like this at the same time. Graffiti artists still have no clue how form works, and you'd be surprised at how simple it is. We can definitely cover form in another video. When we look at modern graffiti, we can see that they understand form with the way they do highlights, or the way they position certain effects on the piece, or the way they overlap certain things. A good example of a 2D graffiti artist that does a 3D style would be somebody like Smo, a good friend here on YouTube, as well as myself. I'm gonna use this piece as an example. We have a lot of overlapping that's happening, and we're having even extensions in the 3D. And all of these forms work properly. Granted, they don't recede into perspective because we're following graffiti's traditional fundamentals, but the forms still work properly. And you can see that stays consistent even when we have a 2-point perspective piece done in a 2-dimensional style. Now, a big thing I want to get into in these older pieces is color theory. Graffiti back in the day is known for its crazy fill-ins, mostly because they didn't have access to a lot of cans. Half the cans were empty, and they would just smack colors in there just for the sake of filling in the letters. And this is definitely something that changes over the years. It's no coincidence that the fill-in of this is predominantly green, and then they have blue 3D with orange and yellow exterior details. That's not a coincidence. That's an understanding of color theory in order to help pop the piece out more. And we can see that with various other different kinds of color schemes in many people's work. In fact, it's kind of like the standard nowadays. You have to at least have a general understanding of color theory in order to come out with dope fill-ins. So overall, that's my example examination of style over the years and the evolution of style over the years. I wouldn't mind doing more of these analysis kind of videos, like analyzing the old school and the progression of style throughout the old days, because it's a lot of fun and it's something I authentically enjoy. Like, that's really where I get the most fun doing graffiti. Anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button. Don't forget, today's video is sponsored by Audible.com. Now for anybody who doesn't know, I'm genuinely dyslexic, so reading for me is extremely difficult, probably why I do graffiti. But now with something like Audible, I don't have to actually read it. I can continue succumbing to my dyslexia. Game of Thrones is right around the corner, so maybe you guys want to read up on Game of Thrones. You can do it free with 30-day free trial with the link in the description. So grab yourself up Game of Thrones, an art book, whatever it is you're interested in. But be sure to go ahead and check out that link. Anyway, for those guys who are new here, we come out with weekly art content. Feel free to subscribe. It's the best way to get the videos first. I'll catch you guys next time, but until then, peace.